So let me share the screen real quick. Okay, so for like I said earlier, in the second part of this class will be more on like application side of thing, and this is one of the thing that actually once is come out from like once we have the phylogeny, what can we do with it? Like what you want to do with it, and this is one such thing. So and a fair warning, a disclaimer as such. So this is topic that rarely touched upon in the undergraduate class. I was asked, this is not my idea. I was asked by MUIC to teach the following topics, which is like, I mean, to be honest, like this is bad mouthing your professors. Not professor, but your program is like, they send me the course description the first time they want me to teach it. And they're like, wait a minute, this is the course description for my PhD, like my doctoral like level studies. Like what? Like I took that class in my PhD, like, oh, I think they can learn it. It's like, okay. I did negotiate to tone some of them down. I was like, dude, like you guys gonna kill each other, like kill the students. So like I negotiate and they listen to me. So but I keep some of this because I think it's something that may be a bit more advanced. And I guarantee you that if you understand the next two lectures, like this one and the next one, the diversification, I think you know more about phylogenetics than some of the doctoral student in biology. Just saying out there, like we really there, because this is a topic that I think there's not many people taught in Thai university. I barely met anyone who taught this subject here. So consider yourself now a secret member of a freak who know about phylogenetics. So, so that's like a fair warning that it might be a bit more complicated, might be a bit above your normal everyday, but I think people find it like pretty interesting. So before we start about character evolution, I just want to review the species delimitation method that I feel like when I talk about last time, I kind of glossed over it a little bit. So I want to do it more slowly here. So like the GMYC, which is a tree-based method, right? So once you get the chronogram here like that, the time calibrated phylogeny, and then you start counting branch like at different timing. So like S-4, you get like one branch here, and you move to the next one, -3, you get two branches, and you move to -2, you still get two branches, but then you get to -1, you have three branches, and by the time you get to 0, which is present, you got 12 branches. And you can see here that at some point is a big change, right? From having not too many branches to like, whoa, so many branches all of a sudden. So you know that somewhere between here, that's the change from being a tocogenetic, meaning between species, to within species. Because the organism, the sequence to be in the same species tend to be different, less from each other, and they tend to branch out from each other more recently. So that's why you see like different branching pattern, and that's the logic underlying GMYC. So that's like not it's pretty straightforward conceptually, but like how to calculate it just involve like counting branches basically. But coalescence is a bit more complicated, and as I said earlier, that each gene have its own history, but you would hope that the history kind of match up with the overall what we call species trees, like the actual actual evolutionary history. So like I said, this is almost like criminal cases. There's some truth out there, there's some real truth. Everyone sees the truth differently, but when you combine all different versions of the truth, then you get the actual truth. So by looking at a lot of different genes, then you can find what we call coalescence, how they come together to produce a species tree. And this is how also some people use it to separate species, do the limitation based on different genes. But this for GMYC, you can do concatenation data set. You can put all the data together in one big tree and just use a tree. But in this method, it's required that you produce tree for each genes, each marker, and then combine them later. So that's the difference between the two methods. But then, like I said, this is something that take a bit more time, a bit more sampling. So we just gonna know about them conceptually, but not real. I mean, unless your group interested in doing this for your project, but most of the time the data set for this kind of stuff are pretty rare, and you kind of have to have your own data set too, because it involves produce species, it produce multiple sequences for one species. So they have to like at least 2 or even more for each species. So that can be pretty intensive conceptually, not conceptually, like in the lab. So that's a review. But now let's move to the real problems here. So this is something that you would think that is not a real question. So chicken and egg problems, like which one come first, right? And the chicken and the eggs fighting about this. It's like you first, right? And then like we all like chicken and eggs, which come first? And then like nah, and it's just like it's supposed to be like conundrum forever. But let me tell you right now, like after taking this class, you have the perfect answer for this, right? You have like the most correct scientific answer for this question, and people who ask you this will regret asking you forever. They would not ask you this again, right? So the way to solve this chicken egg problem is the character evolution. So what is the study of character evolution? Is literal translation, is study of evolution of particular characters, right? Things like eggs, right? You want to know when eggs come from. Like, is an egg come before chicken? A chicken come before eggs? And that's something that you can ask using the character evolution analysis. And so basically studying of history of character. So like when, oops, sorry. Ah, shit. Okay, I need new iPad. I need a lot of things. I need new iPad, I need new iPhone, I need new computer, I need new Mega, I need new life, I need new country, I need new vaccine. So good God, one of those. All right. So is studying history of characters, meaning that like when did it appear? So like when it become first and when it lost it. So what happened to them is that do all animals always have eggs forever, or they just lost them in mammal, or mammal just don't have them to begin with? So like what's going on, right? So you can ask this question using the phylogeny of this group, and I'm gonna use the word a lot to map the character. So when I say map, so like I basically place the character right onto the phylogeny and see where it started. And like this is not guesswork. This is actual like mathematical concept here. So you can actually study this. So, but the thing is, this is like very important, and a lot of people fall into that trap before, and I see this so many, not so many times anymore, but back in the days, because phylogeny can be reconstructed based on morphology, right? We tried to do that like painfully, like way back earlier in the semester. We tried to make phylogeny, the cladogram out of morphological characters. And you can also do phylogeny based on molecular data. But the thing is, if you're going to use that phylogenetic, you can use that phylogeny to study character evolution, you cannot use the phylogeny that come from that morphology, if that make any sense. So for example, if you use the character of having eggs to be part of your cladogram, to be part of your character matrix, it doesn't make any sense to like use that characters to study character evolution. So for example, if I use the word eggs. So like, oh, egg laying animals, right? So it's like duck, chicken, and human. So you use this as a way to make your phylogeny. It's like, oh yeah, this is the egg laying, is the synapomorphy of that group. It's like, done, I have a phylogeny. And then 2 hours later, you like forget what you did and you found this phylogeny. Oh, I want to know where did the chicken come, where the eggs come from. And you're like, oh, this one have eggs. This one have eggs. This one doesn't have eggs. So the eggs originate here. It's like, what? You're just using the same data for two different reasons. Like for first one, you use it to reconstruct relationship, and then you use that same answer to go backward. And it's like, where did the egg come from? So like, you can't really do that. It's sort of like in it's circular reasoning. So that's, but I don't think we have that problem much anymore. If you read the old papers, it's a lot of like, oh yeah, we could reconstruct phylogeny based on this, and we believe that this character start in this way. It's like, you kind of like use the same reasoning over and over. So don't do that anymore, because we have molecular data now. You can have independent estimation of character evolution. So the quick answer to the chicken egg problems is, among biologists, should be easy. So like chicken egg problems, like which one comes first? Like, and you ask them like, which egg, which chicken you talk about? Like what? So because chicken, right, is a part of bird, right? The chicken is here, and we discussed repeatedly that like all other things here that we call reptile is actually, bird is actually part of reptile. So bird is slightly more furry crocodile, basically. Is that right? It doesn't feel right. Yeah, but it is. It's a furry crocodile with the nicer voice. That's it. So birds definitely part of reptile. All reptile have eggs, and like eggs like start long, long ago. So which come first? Like not egg versus chicken egg. It's like the egg, the egg of whatever, the reptilian eggs come definitely before chicken. Chicken just haven't have eggs also. So the eggs keep hatching and hatching and hatching. At one point, it hatched to something look like turtle, and at some point, it hatched to a snake, and then in some weird freak accident, like here, right here, some birds hatch, some crocodile hatch into a more look like crocodile, and the other crocodile somehow start having beaks and fur, and missing here is a freaking dinosaur. So mistake of evolutions, all this T-Rex and whatnot. Just birds being funnies, and some of those birds just skip up because a big asteroid hit the Earth. It's like, I just kind of don't want to be in Earth anymore. And then the birds survive. So here we go. So next time you have the chicken egg problems, ask them like, is it the chicken eggs or reptilian eggs you're talking about, right? So the reptilian eggs are definitely come before chicken. And where chicken egg come from? Like, define chicken. What do you mean by chicken? Is the beaky thing that look like dinosaur is a chicken? Is Archaeopteryx a chicken? And then people just walk away, So that's one way to shut people up. And I did this a couple of times when I really annoyed by people asking me biology questions. Like, you this will happen to you randomly sometimes. Like I'm a botanist, right? So they will be eating lunch and they like pick up a piece of vegetable. It's like, what species is this? It's like, hello, I'm like I study mosses, but like I didn't want to say that because they have a lot of expectation on me being biologist, being botanist. So like I just say, oh, it's like Amaritis plagiarum, and they're like, ooh, impressive. And like I just speak gibberish, and they're like, very impressive. Like because they don't know either, right? So the classic, like the botany student in my department, our classic answer is amilurite, which is like a spoonerism, the backword of alaimilu, alaimiru. It's like, we don't know what it is. So it's in Thai, but it's like twisted. So, and people seem to bought it. Like, oh yeah, what is it? Oh, amilurite. So like, I don't know what it is in backward spelling. So this happen all the time, and you can use one of these tricks to like ask them like really deep questions, like are you talking about like proto chicken or like chicken before chicken or like the mother of chicken? And like they're like, okay, you go crazy. What did Ajahn Beer taught you? So unless you find another evolutionary biologist and they were like, oh, actually I was talking about Cretaceous chicken. I was like, okay, shit, like never mind. And then you like talk about vaccine, talk about government so that they can shut up about this and talk about something else. Okay, so one of the tools we use is called ancestral state reconstruction. So the construction you already know that is like building. So Re is again, right? State is like the state, the being, like what is right now, but this the rebuilding of the ancestral state, because we don't know what ancestor look like. No one lived long enough to see that unless you, as I told you, I'm reading Harry Potter, and now we get to the time turner, which I like neatly, like desperately need one right now. I would turn back like 5 million years and like do stuff I have to do. so so because like no one can turn time, not like Mako like us, we can do that. I am Mako. I don't know if any one of you go to Hogwarts, but I can't do that. So I'm not having time machine. So we don't know what it looks like. So but we can rebuild it based on what we know. So right here, the technique is really simple, right? Right here we have the state, like the character state of the extant species, like the species that are here. So you know that these two species have star shape and these two species have the round shape. We know that because we see them right now. So we know this first component, and the second component, we know the relationship, we know the phylogeny. And we are golden. We actually have tools to think about what the ancestor would look like. How do we do that? So you think about this, like, okay, the descendant of this particular, let's say this is the ancestor A, who regrettably did not buy Bitcoin when it was not hot, right? So ancestor A, we don't know what it is or how long it was ago. We probably have a good guess, but we want to know like what shape of the body it is. Is it round or star? What do you think? Probably should be a star. Like duh. Like of course your two baby have star. Like how could you not have star unless your wife have affair with somebody else? Like, okay, that's not talk about that. All right, plot twist. So of course, like your ancestor is gonna have something that look more like that. So your academic, your educated guess would be that the ancestor have a similar character to the descendants, and that's the reconstruction. You kind of like work backward into time and think about what could have been, and then it's getting more difficult as you move back in time, right? For example, ancestor C here, like what it look like, is it round or star? Would he take dog koi over that koi? Like, is it the koi even produced back then? Is it crypto a thing now? So like, what do we do? It's like, because like one way, right, is the circle, one way is the star. So you were like, maybe it's like the really bloated star, and then like, so it's, I mean, this have some limitation. As you go more backward, it start to get more difficult, right? So there's a couple of different ways that people deal with. So I'm going to show you two different ways that people um, do this. And this by no means not the only two methods you can do. There's like a ton more stuff you can do. So this first method is called parsimony Dalpas method. So parsimony, remember this, right? This means the simplest, right? So it's the simplest method. And Dalpas, literally passing down, just exactly what we just did, right? So the key here is that the simplest, least complicated transition or evolution of character is correct. And this, again, just like what we see from maximum parsimony, is like, are you serious? Like, just the easiest should be the correct answer? Like, that doesn't make any sense. I do complicate things all the time, and it's like, that's your problems. But like, we kind of assume that on the grand scheme of things, they probably do things this way, because why would they go the other crazy way? So I mean, there are reasons. So what they do is like, okay, you two here have circles, so your ancestor probably is a circle, no question asked, right? And then here, like, you two are star, and then your ancestor probably a star too, because like that's your direct ancestor. And then that's problem here is like, okay, like we had the problem before, right? So it should be star or it should be the circle. And remember that the branch length, right? The branch length refer to a number of changes of base pair. So the longer the branch, the more change. And it means that it probably more like farther away evolve from the ancestor. So if you measure a distance from this ancestor to here, this one will be longer to the circle than to the star. So the question is, if you think about parsimony, the most simple possible answer, what do you think? Which one of the state should be the star or should be the circle? Probably should be a star, right? Because why? Because the branching is shorter here. So the chances are you are star here. So you didn't change much from here to here, and you remain star. But on the Y here, you probably still a star here, and something happened. You become, because of COVID, you start to eat more and more, exercise less, and then when you still have waist, it's no longer waist. It's become like so become like a bubble. So on in that branch, you have more time to evolve, right? So in this parsimony method, they just decide that each node has one state. So they decide right away, like you can either be a star or a circle. There's like no like big bulgy star, like that doesn't exist in parsimony down pass method. Just decide, like you're gonna be right or wrong. So this is like there's no like half wrong, half right. Just say it, like what's wrong with you? Just like go with the simplest thing. It's just why go crazy. Well, so that's parsimony down pass method. And I know a lot of people, a lot of scientists, and you'll be like, that's not how things work in life. Like, okay, sure, but that's how you think about it. That's one way to think about it. That's not the only way. So let's look at the other way. So again, this would come back to Hansard again, the maximum likelihood method. So you know what's coming up, right? So we have to calculate the likelihood. So this based on calculated likelihood. So you have to figure out, like, you just like when you do philology, you compute all the possible outcomes. So you ask yourself this. So ancestor A here, how likely for A to be circle, and how likely for A to be a star? Right, and you look at the data here, and that this is an actual calculation, like they involve branch length as well. So you got branch length here, and then like, okay, based on the branch length, the proximity of that character state, this probably at 100%, and the chance that they be you can't say anything 100% for sure. We have to leave 1%, like that 0.1% for yourself to like, oh, but I didn't say 100%. So it's like this 0.1% that might be wrong, So let's say that. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it will be a circle, but I don't know. It's just I think on the safe side. So they give you exact numbers, right? When you reconstruct it, you can say it's probably a circle. So the reconstructed state at the node will show as probability. So it doesn't give you the one correct answer, it's just like maybe it's that one. Same thing here, like you ask that same two question, how likely it will be star, how likely to be a circle, and it's probably like 100% star and 0% circle, and that's okay. And then here, I think this is why people like this slightly more, but not much. I mean, it's kind of where you come from. So like we said before, the chances are because this is so far away from point A, right? So it's not likely that it will be a circle, but there's still a chance because they keep one branch become a circle and this one a star. So it might end up like this. It probably says something like, I think, more like a pie chart, like 75% it would be a star. And just like 25% would be a circle. So it gives relative probabilities of like what it could have been like. It won like definitely a circle or definitely a star, just unlike the Dow pass method, which is try to like keep one definite answer, just like have one state, just one definite answer. Whereas the maximum likelihood method or trying to like, we think there's 25% chance that this would be this character. And you can see where this coming from two different angles. Like if you say you are a paleontologist, you study fossils and you want to figure out what would the proto chicken look like, you want to give people a definite answer, right? I want to say the first chicken have two horns and like really long feather that go all the way to the ankle. You want to say something with that, like, but if you're more like evolutionary biologist and you like don't care too much about the fossil, just want to give some like insight into like the evolution of feather. It's like, okay, there's 75% chance of them having feathers because dinosaurs have that also, but not a lot. So you kind of be a bit more tentative with your answer. So they both, I mean, they both wrong. None that's correct because the only answer you would get, you would want, like the truth is when you had a time turner and you go back in time. It's like, what are you? Like you're freaking proto chicken, review yourself, right? Like what do you look like? That's when you get the truth. But like, until then, it's just like, you guys are both wrong, but we believe you more than the others. So, yep. So again, this is why they say that they use the word reconstruction because we don't really know what it looks like and we sort of make it up. So we are now entering the area of fortune teller, which is like, we believe this happened in the past. So, and that actually goes a long way. So let me show you some example. So this is the flower of Verbinaceae. You probably seen the left one quite often in Thailand. If you're in Thailand, this is Pakakrong. It's like everywhere. It actually is everywhere on Earth. It's one of the most highly invasive species with the really pretty flowers, but it's so bad because it's thorny, it's prickly, and it have bushy stem and difficult to eradicate. I visit a site in Kanchanaburi, and they like basically spend 10 years like taking this weed out of the forest, and it's still not finished because it's so difficult to get through. But it's pretty flowers, people love them. It's all over the world and all over the tropics in the world. So that's lantana, the official name. But you probably see this, you probably recognize this word verbena, especially if you're into cosmetic. It's like a lot of perfume, cosmetic cream thing is verbena cream. So it's come from these flowers. So what about them? So the verbena flower or the verbena plants produce three different kinds of fruit. There's undivided fruit, just like big round one, and the two units, you see the two unit here. It's like a two shells together, and it's 4 unit split 4 ways. And remember when we talk about evolutionary taxonomies, they like to tell stories, right? And as biologists back in the day, we do this too. Ooh, okay, this family have three types of fruit, right? So what do you think happened in the evolution? Oh, of course, I'm a plant professor. Let me tell you, right? Because plant evolved from simple to complex. And of course, right, this one have to come first, the undivided come first, and they learn how to split because important for the dispersal, and they want to disperse further. So I split from 2 to 4, and if you live long enough, we'll split into 8, 16, 22, whatever. And this sounds awesome. Like, and you're like, okay, would that be on the exam? I was like, yes, everything will be on the exam. So that's the biology that I've been taking as a student, right? And there's like, okay, there's a story, and I eat it all up until I took this class in my PhD, and it's like, rethink everything you ever learned in biology. Are you sure that they tell you the right story? Like, is this the right story? Is it come from undivided, or they are telling lies to you? So you map the characters onto the phylogeny, and lo and behold, the ancestor of this family right here have the light gray character, which is the 2 unit. So the story go like this. Actually, you know what? At the beginning of time, once upon a time, Bobinaci ancestral have 2 units. And at some point, some naughty species split to 4 sometime and only sometime. And then one day, they decided 2 unit is superfluous. Why we do 2 unit 4? They merge it into 1 unit and they live everly happy ever after. This whole group have 1 unit. So the undivided fruit is actually a apomorphy, is a derived characters, not the other way around. And if I were to do this without philosophy, I would never have guessed that ever, period. Because I mean, like, why would this, what, like we say it's in parsimony, right? Why would you make more troubles for yourself, right? Why don't you make your life easier? Why make your life more complicated? So, but you like, each group of organisms have different stories, and this allow us to think more deeply um about the evolutions. And I think there's a big paper addressing it. I almost have you guys read that paper, but it's kind of like a bit cuckoo. I mean, like, he's sort of like a bit preachy about it, but essentially what I'm saying, the gist of the paper is that, like, us biologists tend to love storytelling. We love just blow stuff out of our behind, just like, oh, this come from that come from this, and it makes sense. And they're like, you don't really know what's going on, do you? Right? So, like, kind of like to make story up that makes sense to us, but it's probably not the real story. So that's what he tried to say. Just like, think about, like, what would be evidence for that kind of evolution, not just because it looks nice or it seems sensible that they would evolve this way. They probably have really convoluted evolutions that we don't know about, right? And not just biology uses, linguistic people use this. And if you are polyglot, you people who speak multiple languages, you probably seen this already. Like, there was seven in English. If you I speak a bit of German, is sieben, and you speak Dutch, is seven, and like, it's very similar to each other. And you look to this set of language, right? Or this, like, Scandinavian, is, I can't pronounce any of this. I'm watching also another series like Ragnarok on Netflix, is all Norwegian, and it's like really feel like IKEA furniture all the time. It's like sorry if I Norwegian in this crowd. I'm not mean to offend your language. Your language is really difficult, but you still see like the remnant of the words. And linguists, the linguistic people, it's Sam in Russia. Thank you. So it's like all this, and the Thai people feel like, oh, we feel kind of left out because the number 7 in Thai is jet, right? It's actually, Thai language is weird because we get a lot of influence from all over the place. If you look at Pali for number 7, it's Satta. Sattaban is like have 7 leaves. So it's all the same. So Indo-European language, and you can see a bit more similarity between German and Scandinavian because they have the same root from the Proto-Germanic language. And then French and Spanish kind of have different numbers, right? Because they're Romance language, they come from the Italiano side of things. So that's, even though the countries are next to each other, but they never love each other. They fight all the time, like the French and Anglos and Prussian. So they use the language because language is something that somewhat a bit above politics, a bit, not completely. So you can trace back the relationship between different tribes based on the language. You know which like happened when, and then they use the same thing in Polynesian, and they know that people from Hawaii actually originate from Taiwan, but not directly to Hawaii. They go through Australia, Papua New Guinea, and go way back up to Hawaii based on the language. So yeah, so we can talk about European history all day long. Such a fun history. So many killings, right? Just like they Q, A Q, B, B Q, C, C Q, D, and they like keep moving around. So, and back to the problems with chicken and eggs, right? It's not as simple as we might have hoped, right? So I said earlier that almost all, so this is basically reptile, right? So this is reptile. And one thing that all the reptiles and theria, which is all the mammals. So theria mean uterus, the same root here. When you say this TR, mean uterus. So the animal with uterus, they at some point, if you study anatomy or you study reproductive biology, you would know that even in the womb, in the uterus, your baby is protected in the amniote structure that look like an egg. So when you crack open the egg, so there's thin layer. So just like you have an egg inside your tummy, basically. It's the same thing. So, but instead of having the hard shell and you pop that out of your body, you finish all that and you give rise to the young. So this is called vivipary. So vivi mean life, and ov mean eggs, right? Ovipary, just you keep out eggs or you keep out the live young. So there's definitely a shift from having the hard shell eggs pop out to the live young, except for the crazy thing like platypus, right? In Australia, the platypus is a mammal that still give rise to the eggs. So that's like early diverging. And so basically that's a remnant, that's a kind of transition that you see that there's some mammals that used to have eggs. And then all the reptiles have eggs, basically, but in this squamate. So squamate refer to the structure of that skull, the skull of, if you have dead geckos in your house, you will see this, like their skull have like this kind of squarish hole right behind their eyes, and that's called squamate. And this group, they change back from laying eggs to vivipary to actually give rise to young 115 times. So there's some crazy geckos out there with like just like pop out a lot of babies. Imagine like 5 million geckos just pop out a mother. Ew, that sounds like Planet of Geckos. So, ooh, oh god, that sounds disgusting. Anyhow, so again, like not, there's no like one clear story for everything. So that, so we do have this kind of problem revisited, and this is just timely, like extremely timely with the virus thing, right? So we talk about I didn't want to like bring the highest data, the newest data in, because I feel like the situation is still unstable. But like with the COVID, we can use ancestral state reconstruction to figure out where this strain coming from. And to tell you the truth, like not that I'm hiding anything, but like the name that we given to all the strains in COVID, like Indian strain, British strain, and blah, blah, blah. All those are reported based on the first report of that strain, not because they originated in India or in Thailand or in Britain, just because the first registered or reported from that country. It could have been from anywhere else, but it just popped up in the country that's got that name. The same thing with Spanish flu 100 years ago, right? 100 years ago, there's like Spanish flu supposedly come from Spain, but in fact, it was started in the US, but it's like spread like crazy in Spain, and they're giving the Spanish flu name, and I think they're racist back then. But anyhow, things like this too. This is reconstruction of the arthropod vectors for this plebo virus. So this new virus here, and they've tried to figure out where they come from, where it start evolving from, and they found that it's mostly related to the virus in the flies here, in the mosquitoes. But then traced back into the history, it turned out that it shifted from the virus intake. So at some point, the ticks give the virus to the mosquitoes, and then this virus start mutating. And I think the same thing we found with the coronavirus, that it shift from probably pangolin or bats and jump to humans and start mutating and become the COVID that haunt us this day. So that's something that useful in terms of character evolutions. Okay.